Surprise!
Hello.
Ahoy hoy!
We are here. There are faces
Welcome.
to match the voices.
Yeah, how
It
about that?
it's us. It's bonus action.
It is
We're
your
gonna talk-
doom.
What's that other extra space you've got on your?
It's captions. I had Zoom
Oh, okay.
minimized,
Got it.
and so it wasn't displaying the captions properly.
That's cool. Welcome to a bonus action episode where we talk about the previous episodes, D&D in general, and answer your questions if you have questions.
Do you have questions? Deep, burning questions that keep you awake in the night? Preferably about the game. But
Yeah,
I mean,
I've
we
got
are
room
kind
for
of
other kinds of
experts on every
questions.
topic, so. Like whale tongues.
Like whale tongues. Whale tongues has been, yes, that was a past
Yes.
past thing that got discussed.
Yes, it was.
Like you do.
I love that we had a conversation about it.
So what was the? Hold on, we did our last bonus action was like a while ago.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we've had a bit of a wonky schedule, so
Yeah.
It's been most of October's episodes and November's episodes that we can talk a little bit about, and any other stuff too. But just to give a consideration, what was I'm trying to think now. What was the last episode? I don't know. You
I can look.
guys were leaving, right?
Yeah, I think it was around then. I'm pretty sure it was just before we left.
Go ahead.
I think it was you and Jen.
7.
I don't remember. I should probably put something.
No,
in the
I
title of
got
this one.
confused in my note taking and stopped putting dates of the episodes.
Oh, I think I did that.
I can tell you when it was. I know when it was. I think we didn't have an episode on October 15th.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm looking at it right now.
Yeah,
Episode
'cause I
11
had
this will be
or
episode 11 through
October, not October 15th, October 13th.
So
Yeah,
it's a
'cause I'm
13th?
looking
No,
at it right
20th.
now.
Sorry, 20th, because it was
Yeah.
the day of the voter information thing that I
Our
went
last
to.
bonus action was October 13th published. So that's the YouTube channel. But yeah, that gives me a general idea.
Okay.
Rest is Silence, Tiny Dancer, Frogs Without Hats, Fix You, and Taken Aback.
Frogs Without Hats. I love it. It's so good.
I was particularly proud of that one.
That
Yes.
was a good one. How do you come up with your episode titles?
I just come up with whatever I think is clever, or maybe come up with a song reference, like Taken Aback. And sometimes it's just a joke that for me and nobody else. Like Taken Aback is a ship term as well as a description of how you reacted at the end of the episode.
I did not know that.
Yeah, it means for when the wind hits the sails when the sails are in the wrong way and the wind hits them, the ship is taken aback.
Ah, okay. I learned a really cool way to remember starboard and port.
Mm-hmm.
Port is 4 letters, and so is left.
Oh, that's pretty good.
Yeah.
I like that.
I remember it because I still sometimes will use the more archaic starboard and larboard, which is helpful. Yeah, and larboard helps because it starts with an L, and it's if you're facing the front of the ship, it's on the left.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, wait. Okay. Yeah.
And then my brain goes, okay, so that means starboard's on the right. And then if I'm trying to be like, oh, but if I'm going to use the word port, then that means it's on the left. It's a multi-step process, but I get there.
Yeah. I like left 4, port 4, because that's a lot of steps for my brain to try to remember.
I play a lot of Sea of Thieves, and when I'm playing it, I don't say port and starboard. I say larboard or starboard when I'm playing with other people.
And how do the other people react to you saying larboard?
I usually explain it beforehand and then do it, but you know.
You do what you do.
If
we have a question.
Yeah. If Hamlet only existed about a week ago, what about West Virginia and related songs? That is an excellent question. That is something that could have been asked of our particular Fae friend in universe a little bit.
Yeah.
I'm gonna answer I'd say West Virginia is probably a little new too. Yeah, because I mean the whole point of it was Charles coming in and being like, I don't recognize this song. I've never heard it before. Where where did this come from?
Let's see. I just realized what I'm trying to do. There was a really simple way to do it.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I'm trying to give a reference to which episodes are covered by this bonus action, and all I had to do was
Mhm.
say October through November.
Yep, that's what we did. Yeah, that's what we ended
Yeah.
up doing with it the last time around.
Yeah.
Yeah, usually it's a single month, but
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can I
I
boost
mean,
my
if we want to
mic?
look at the titles, I mean, we've got episode 11 was The Rest is Silence, which I was given. I'm gonna go ahead and not take credit for that being more clever than I expected. I mean, it was just a Shakespeare reference originally, but of course, when they took their long rest, it was silent.
it's true.
Yeah.
We had a
So,
silent dream.
Yeah.
um,
I
and somebody said in chat that was a deliberate thing. It wasn't deliberate. That was entirely accidental.
And like that leads to the best pro DM tip ever,
Take
which
credit
like
for
DM pro tip ever, which is when something like that happens, just take the credit.
Yeah. Take
Let
the
the
credit
players
and run
think you,
with it.
let them think you're a genius, because that's why not? Like stuff like that will happen, and your players will think you were a genius when it was a total accident. But you can take that credit.
Absolutely. I mean, look, the universe throws you so few softballs. When it does, knock that shit out of the park.
Mhm.
Take
Mhm.
advantage of it.
if I have to explain Tiny Dancer or Fix You, I feel like I've done for those episodes. I feel
Okay,
like that's
am I weird for still liking Coldplay?
no. Coldplay's great.
Like what you
Okay.
like just
I like some Coldplay. I'm
I
I
will
you
like
say
know.
this.
older Coldplay. I don't like the
I
newer
just
stuff as
watched
much.
the John Williams documentary on Disney Plus, which is phenomenal, and anyone who is interested should watch it because first of all, it just is astonishing how many iconic things that man has written.
Yeah.
And they got to a point where they're like, and then that was 1985. And you're just going, he hasn't even hit so many of the bangers yet. Um, and also I found out he went to my high school and nobody
What?
talks about it, and there's no auditorium named for him or anything. And I texted my best friend who I went to high school with. I was like, "Did you know?" And she's like, "Yeah, because they talk about that a lot in orchestra." And I wasn't in
Why
orchestra,
haven't they
but
named something after him? He's like the most
I
famous
don't
modern
know. And he
composer.
and he kept bringing it up in the thing. But I'm bringing this up because Chris Martin is in the documentary because I guess on their last tour they would come out to the ET theme,
Oh,
and he's
cool.
a huge John Williams nerd. So
Yeah.
if he is talking about the musicality and the thematic elements of John Williams, I'm gonna give him a pass. When
Yeah.
when people are recognizing those things, I'm here for it.
Yeah.
Um,
I was having a conversation with somebody recent, actually some coworkers, and we were talking about like people that we think are very good musicians and of like the modern era, and I mentioned Trey Anastasio, and they were like, "Who?" And I said, He's in Fish," and they were like, "Oh yeah, of course you're a Fish person." I was like, "No, no, no, you have to understand. This guy wrote the theme song to Sesame Street as a child." And I started like running through stuff he's done, and they were like, "Okay, that's actually really impressive." I said, "I know, right? Look him up. The man is incredible." I feel like musicians just touch into something that speaks to everybody regardless of life experiences and things like that. There's something in the language of music that um, can convey a message language cannot, and I love that. And so I kind of like how, and I'm tying this back in. I like how our titles have often tied into songs because you hear that title and you instantly have an idea of what the feel is.
Yeah.
yes, and we are starting to prepare a playlist. So
Yep.
when that is ready, we shall share our
I did my
players in the book.
Dominique playlist. It is over 3 hours long.
I think our campaign playlist is just going to be 37 iterations of Darude Sandstorm.
Oh, okay, good.
Excellent. I love this. Oh,
And in Frogs Without Hats, I mean, obviously that's men without hats. You can dance if you want to, all
the
that fun
safety
stuff.
dance.
But also in that episode, you saw a ghost of a frog who didn't have a hat on. In fact, it was specifically mentioned, does this frog have a hat?
Yeah.
No, it does not.
Yeah, I remember that. And
Yeah.
I'm wondering if that's the father of all frogs.
The hatless frog, or it was just not of the fashion.
Perhaps haberdashery had not been invented yet. He is the all frog.
I mean, he currently
The
wears a hat.
frog.
See, that was bigger. That's bigger. That's Bagger Frog. So that's Bigger Frog, and he is currently wearing a hat.
He is the all frog, the frog.
It's
The
a
frog
very
of
large
destiny.
hat that a bunch of people live on.
Or are the people the hat?
Maybe the world is his hat.
Maybe.
Now, oh no. Is the universe just like a piece of felt on the hat of a giant frog?
And if so, what are the other garments?
Oh. Okay.
As much as I love the idea of putting the world on the back of some sort of animal.
Yeah. Like Discworld had the elephant.
Yeah, the elephant and the turtles and those stuff. Yeah.
Turtle,
Yeah, it was a
Yeah,
turtle.
Discworld is the turtle.
Which
yeah.
one's the elephant?
I mean, if
there's no,
there's actual myth.
Is that an actual lore from the
you
real
can
world?
see that in I'm pretty sure somewhere along the line I've seen actual old timey
I just
images
remember
of
the world on an elephant. That's
I know
it's
what
on
you're
an
talking
elephant.
about, but there's also another.
It's on an elephant on a turtle.
Sorry.
I can see it in my brain, and it's like an ultra colonial British author.
Yeah.
And
Is it Kipling?
it's Kipling. Thank you.
Okay, there we go.
Kipling has one that has that.
Yeah. Okay. I couldn't remember where I had seen it. I just remembered I'd seen it.
Oh yeah, Discworld rests and spins on the back of elephants too. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's that old joke of I can't remember.
But Kipling also has the tortoise, the giant.
It's the old joke of like, well, okay, what does the turtle stand on? Oh, another turtle. And what does that turtle stand on? Another turtle. And then what's that turtle stand on? Listen, it's turtles all the way down.
My the joke my grandfather told me when I was really little, and it remains one of my favorite jokes ever, was, what did the snail say while riding on the back of a turtle?
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, when
you
your
say
punchline.
it now, because
my mic didn't pick it up. It's a wing.
Ah.
But
yeah, your mic
much
didn't pick it up. I
higher,
was like, wait.
much higher pitched and excited. But I guess my noise gate.
Slow down, you're gonna kill us both.
Does Manon get her own playlist?
Yes, that is the aforementioned 3-hour playlist. It's a lot of 90s music, y'all. It's so much 90s music.
Yeah, in case it's unclear, Dominique is Katie is playing a character playing another character.
Yeah.
I'm
very meta.
The actual character that Katie is playing is technically, I mean, she goes by Dominique, so we're going to call her Dominique most of the time. But the character's actual name is Manon. So
she's complicated like a stinky onion.
Oh, it's more complicated than you know.
Yeah, no. Okay. So, end of last episode. What the fuck?
Yeah, that was some chaos.
I was seriously going, wait, did I miss something?
So I want to tell you something. I knew that I had two things prepared, and I felt very, very smart for being prepared this way.
Yeah.
So when I put this double, like, weird cross in front of you, I thought there was two options. One, you were going to immediately pick up on it, play into it, and then I could end the episode with the rest of the players thinking that you maybe had betrayed them, maybe, possibly, who knows. And then we could do that. Or you would actually ask me above table what's going on. In that case, I'm bringing in Roscoe, the gunslinging flump, to end this.
I was so thrown off. I thought I had forgotten something. And
That's
so I was
perfectly
like,
reasonable.
wait, what is going on?
Yeah.
Like, it
Just to let you know,
legit threw me off on such a fundamental level. I
I
thought I
fully
forgot something
expected
about
it.
my character.
Yeah. I fully expected that was a possibility. So I was just
Yeah.
like, I'm going to be prepared for either of those two options.
And frankly, I love him, so I'm okay with him having been brought up.
Yeah. Roscoe is part of Flump Force 5. And I'm not going to apologize for that.
Lump Force 5. I need a thunder sound effect. Oh, wait, hang on. Siri. Hey, Siri. Play a thunder clap.
Now playing Thunderclap by Augustus Pablo on Apple Music.
No, that's not what I wanted.
Definitely not on Twitch. No, we definitely don't
No.
want to have music playing.
All right, well. There you go. Did mine come through? Because yours did not.
Oh,
Yours
stupid.
did, Katie.
I did? Okay. I was like, did it just edit all thunder sounds out?
No, I could kind of hear yours a little bit, but yeah.
I was really thrown for a loop. That was not, I was fully expecting we were walking into a fight, and then dude dropped down, and I was like, what is happening? So
You might still, it depends on how you guys play it.
Yeah.
I mean, there's enough, I believe there is enough context for you to maybe have a guess as to what's going on.
I have some thoughts.
Yeah.
I have
But
some thoughts. I'm gonna need to have a little chat with the girl in the ring pretty soon.
Well, you did have a long chat with her while y'all were under the oceans, remember?
Yep, I did. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we gotta figure out that.
I think you're gonna figure out. Well, I mean, the conversation is ongoing, even though the flump is taking some pot shots at you. So
Yeah.
there's definitely.
We can't kill Roscoe. We can't.
I mean, he might take shots at you. He might take shots at them. We'll see how that
them,
goes.
That's fine. That's actually 2 problems solved. But we cannot kill him because Roscoe is a precious flump that must be protected at all costs.
This is true.
It's a shame that he's the last one left of Flump Force 5, but that's just the way it is.
Okay, so during COVID, when everything was shut down,
during lockdown, I'm gonna just make the correction.
Yes,
COVID is still happening.
Thank you. During lockdown, Seth Meyers, John Oliver, Jimmy Fallon, Stephen Colbert, and Jimmy Kimmel got together and did a podcast to raise money for their cruise. And it was called, oh God, I just forgot the name. Something Force 5. Was it? Some Force 5. And every time they said the name, they'd have a thunderclap that played. And it annoyed the hell out of one of the guys. I can't remember who. I think it was Seth that it annoyed. And so it became like this big running joke. And so every time I hear Force 5, now I always think of thunder. So that's what you get there. But Jen.
Yes.
I have a question for you.
Yes.
You're a puzzle fiend, much like myself.
Yes, I am.
Okay. When you get a puzzle during a game,
yes,
are you able to, because this is something I was never able to do, are you able to like stay in the game and work on the puzzle at the same time, or do you tunnel vision, or how?
It depends on how tricky the puzzle is and what part of my brain I need to use. Like there are some puzzles where you can sort of, it becomes an automatic, you're just converting something or you're moving something around, and that part becomes easy and you don't have to think. But other ones where you're really having to think and hold a bunch of things in your head, then I sort of tune out a little bit.
Got it. Oh, you know what? I'm sorry. I need to correct myself. It was not during lockdown. It was during the strike, and it was called Strike.
Oh, during the writer's strike.
I remember that. They did a whole bunch of stuff in
Sorry, I don't.
Nobody cares, Siri. We're not talking to you.
They did a whole bunch of stuff that was crossed. I remember that was
Yeah.
when Conan O'Brien said something along the lines of that kind of stuck with me about comedy, and that like when you can condense, like he was talking about literally physical space for physical comedy, but it also applies to like jokes in general. Like
Yeah.
the more you can condense down the elements of a joke, the funnier you can generally make it,
Yeah.
as long as you don't exclude important elements while doing so.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's true with almost
It
all
is.
writing. When not all writing, but specifically in terms of entertainment and television and film. In TV, they call it pushing left, because in the writer's room you have a board, an actual physical whiteboard
Mhm.
with index cards, and you lay out the entire season. And closer to the left side is earlier in the season, and further is later in the season. So often you'll come in thinking you have material that'll last you the whole season. You'll lay it out, and really what'll happen is everything will push left, and you'll realize you have like 2 episodes worth of material when you thought you had a full season of television. Um, but
I
that's what
always
you want. You're cutting out the things that are unnecessary
yeah.
Yeah,
to tell the story.
I had a writing project with some friends on the SCP Wiki that we were creating a kind of a big group project. There was like 5 or 6 of us, and we were on a deadline, which sucked. There's that old joke. I think it might have been Hemingway. It was like, no, it wasn't Hemingway, but somebody made a joke
Hemingway
about how
was
like,
not a master of
yeah,
cutting
no,
things
yeah,
short.
yeah.
Hemingway did
It
not
was
like to condense. Hemingway would have
it
full page
was
sentences.
it was the idea that I'm sorry, whoever it was, I'm Oscar Wilde might have been it. I'm sorry, I wrote you a long letter. I didn't have time to write a short one. And
Yeah.
because we were on a deadline, legitimately, we were stuck at 30,000 words, and I wanted to get it down to like 15 or 20 at a bare minimum, and we just didn't have time
Yeah.
to cut it. So we just had to play with what we ended up, and it was a great article. It was a great story too.
Was this
Plenty of
eight
people
ball?
loved it. It's extremely popular. Yeah, it's 8 ball actually.
Yeah, it's a good one.
It's extremely popular, but I would have loved it if we had like an extra couple weeks and I could have cut it down a little bit, because I'm a big fan of cutting things down.
I am very good at brevity if I'm writing technically. If I am writing for a more emotional impact, there's going to be so many words. So many words.
I like to start. I mean, I don't mind starting with a lot of words, although I've gotten really, really good because I think a lot of people do this when they get to the point where they're writing to a word count.
Mm-hmm.
Like you just get really good about getting your story. You already know, like, here's where this needs. I'm going to do this. This is going to where it's going to end, and just hit the word count pretty much exactly dead on most of the time. But ultimately, I would love it if I could write more, but I hate writing so much that I want to write as little as possible to start with,
Which is
and
so
then shorten it.
ironic given how good you are at it.
I don't know about all that, but
Shoot.
so I'm sorry,
I don't
I lost that. What'd you say?
I said shoot.
Oh, you didn't say anything. Gotcha.
It's interesting because a project I did fairly recently I was working on, and I just like I kept checking my word count because it felt like I had written so much, and it just was inching along. I could not get my words up on it, which is not usually my problem.
Yeah.
And it was pulling teeth to get my words out and to hit my count.
Was it finding the right words to express yourself, or was it that you were being
It
too
was a
good at expressing
complicated
yourself?
project for a lot of
Got it.
reasons. Um, but yeah, and that made me feel like I couldn't necessarily be creative
Got
in
it.
all the ways I normally am, but
Yeah.
also it was a I don't know. I don't know. There were a lot of places where it was like I could start another section, but then I would have to go way over.
Mm-hmm.
And it was, which one do I want to go for? Like, do I ask to have another 1,000 words, or do I,
Yeah.
come in 500 short?
Yeah.
That it was a tricky one. It was really weird. It was a weird experience trying to have that balance. But
Sim, I've got a question for you, and
Hit
it's
me.
kind of related in
All
that
right.
when we're writing things, sometimes we gravitate to something that just captures us and we really love. And with oh goodness, thank you,
Well, thank you so
Buzz.
much, Buzz.
With players in book, there are obviously a lot of NPCs that have gone into this game so far, and
Yes, too many, I would actually argue
the
at this point, but
the what the player or what the audience can't see is the list that of like
right.
all of the teachers at the school that was put into Roll20 so that we would be able to access and know who the professors are. And you wrote story for each of them. Like they all have backstories and there's relationships between them and all sorts of stuff. And I'm kind of curious, as you were developing the instructors, which one did you find yourself most attracted to writing for? Like which one really captured something and inspired you?
Give me a second to look at the list.
Yeah, no, not a problem.
Let's see if I can find it really quickly without having to load up the actual game map because I've got it in a map, obviously.
Yeah, I'm the worst, and I like to spring really detailed questions on people before I give them warning.
There it is. There it is. Okay. Um. uh, mm, Honestly, I'd say the one I was most interested in was Lazard. He's not a teacher. He's one
Yeah.
of the shopkeepers.
Monsieur de la Fontaine?
Lazare de la Fontaine. Yeah.
Yeah, I want to learn more about that dude. He's
Well, there's more to learn
interesting.
for sure. Yeah. No, the Lazare de la Fontaine. And his history and like who he is. Out of the teachers, honestly, I kind of was just hitting again, and I don't want to take too much credit. I don't know why I'm like this, but I don't want to take for this. I I did write something for every one of those teachers. Absolutely. I created an interweb uh of relationships, but to be clear, it's like a paragraph and a half for each of these
Yeah, but
characters.
there's like how many teachers?
There's 3, 6, 9, 12,
Uh-huh.
15, 8, 21 if we count all the staff.
And that is
And then
just the school staff.
that's just the school staff, not counting the beachside
And I
shops or the
I do
students.
want to note for anyone who's watching, this is not how every DM
Yeah.
works, and you do not have to feel obligated to do this in your own world. Like this is how Sim works and how Sim feels prepared to run our game. But for a lot of people, they'll come up with an NPC on the spot and just make a couple of notes. Like in the DMG, we have a little NPC tracker form
Mhm.
where you can just jot down notes if things come up in the moment. Like,
I am an in the moment DM.
yeah,
I
it
cannot plan.
or some people have a couple of NPCs prepared and then leave a lot of space. So it really it's what works for you. So do
Mhm.
not hear this and suddenly think that you have to come up with 60 NPCs and be able to keep them all straight and have relationships and everything. You may find it works better to go, oh, the players are coming up against this theme. I need to have a couple of NPCs that embody that because this thing has come up in our game. How can I create that and have that, come up organically? It just really is what works for you as a DM and for your table and story.
I will make one suggestion, no matter what your DM style is. Keep a bar patron in your back pocket that is some sort of goblinoid or kobold or some sort of different lineage, because inevitably you're going to have your PCs go into a bar. There's going to be somebody sitting at the bar who has absolutely nothing to do with the story, but you're gonna mention, oh yeah, it's a goblin. He's sitting at the bar and he's just kind of,
Boblin?
yes, Barblin. I'm Barblin Katie now.
Uh,
But basically, the least interesting NPC is the one that the PCs are going to be most interested in. So just have one in your back pocket that you can whip out.
it's ironic to be considered like I've got all this preparation when really almost every session is I have all of the maps, I have the NPCs prepared,
Hmm.
and that's it.
Yeah.
Everything else is driven by the players, like how the players interact with the NPCs, where they go, and so on and so forth. So I mostly improvise every session while still having all this stuff in my back pocket just in case the players decide they want to interact with it or not.
Yeah.
And most of the time, they're not going to interact with it. Although Katie's got a good point. There's never a bad time to have just a funny little guy somewhere in your game because the players will almost always become attached somehow.
And want to adopt them and take them home and make
Yeah,
them
it
the
never
driving
hurts
force
to
of the
have
game.
like a couple of generic characters on standby that you can drop in anywhere that you have your character show up and suddenly need an NPC. Like it's nice to have a little Rolodex of, maybe 10 to 12 characters that you just have ready for whenever they're needed, and you can sort of just drop that template into the bar or into the town square or wherever, and suddenly you have someone who's an armor smith and has been repairing the armor for the army that's been passing through and can give them information about that, or the I don't know,
The
whatever,
vet.
the accountant, like
Yeah.
an accountant has all sorts of information that they could be useful to
Mhm.
visitors if they can get in with the account. Like find interesting ways, have characters, because an accountant could be in a bar or could be at an office or could be in like
Yeah.
people have lives, and encountering these characters in various places, having them ready to drop in is always really useful.
We found in another game that I play with Sim, we found a mind flayer and murdered it. And then in a crisis of conscience, it got revivified. And it has turned out to be a wonderful source of information for the location we were in. And I
Yeah,
don't
you
know
guys
if,
pre-murdered it, actually. That
huh?
was
Yeah, we did. Well, it was being cloned, and so I killed it, and then it just said why in my
which,
head,
by the
so I
way,
revivified it.
tip to any DMs out there, have an NPC that your players kill. Just say why really sadly right before they
It's
die and
awful.
don't explain it.
It was so bad. I wasted a diamond. Well, I didn't
What do you
waste. I
say?
used a diamond to revivify it.
Yeah, you
But this
actually
is such a great opportunity because that just random thing that we decided to latch onto has given Sim a way to give us so much information about characters and the setting and things like that. So if you can set up little sort of hooks for yourself that might allow you to pass info along without it feeling like you're sort of jamming it down the players' throats, that's a huge help. Huge help.
I pulled that exact thing with multiple games at this point.
Hmm.
Very first game I ever ran, actually. It was the very first session of the very first game I ever ran. The players were it was a Christmas game. The players were in a cabin and a Christmas tree with no pine needles or anything on it, which had died basically. Reached for one of the players and they immediately attacked it. No question. And then as it died, I just had it go, why? So it doesn't even like you can just do it with any character
Yeah.
that is capable of speech.
No, it's
Uh
very upsetting. Sim, you had
I
a question from Fuel asking
right.
how you note the speech pattern and
before we go to that, I
Okay.
actually wanted to add one thing,
Oh, yeah,
which
I'm
is
sorry.
I think also in that spirit of sharing information with your players, I think a lot of DMs are afraid to have their NPCs give the players information. They want to make the players ask the right questions or
Yeah.
really drag out. And so what ends up happening is your NPCs seem unnaturally cryptic or
Yeah.
shady, or like let them give your players information. Let your players have what they need to go out in the world. Because if someone says, you know, there was a man who came through, and the players go, okay, what did he look like? He wore a hat. And you're like, okay, well, but what, like, you saw the guy. What
Yeah.
did he look like? He was tall. Like, just give the information.
Yeah.
You know, describe the person
Well, and one of the
in a
other
way that becomes useful, unless there's a specific reason, because otherwise, like, unless there's a reason, it should not be like they can't give the information.
Mhm.
Withholding just ends up feeling
It's unnecessary.
withholding.
and
Yeah,
eventually your players will stop bothering to ask questions because they're going to
Yes,
think, well, we're not going to get it anyway, so why
right.
bother? So, yeah.
And I think a lot of new DMs think when they're doing that, they're being mysterious, or they're creating, you know, they're giving the players reasons to go explore this stuff. But in reality, when you give your players information, you're giving them reasons to go do things. And when you're withholding it, often you are taking
Having,
away from their
yeah.
interest in what
I
they're
mean,
doing.
if the players, here's the thing. Jennifer is exactly correct. If your players are asking your NPCs a question, they are legitimately straight up telling you what they need in that moment in the game. And if you ignore it, well, you're ignoring them telling you their needs and wants. And so when they're not having fun later, that's on you.
So, like, if Dominique says, I really need about 50,000 platinum,
Hmm.
it,
That's something that you will eventually be able to earn, I'm sure.
I don't, why does that answer make me nervous?
Then Riv might enter into a philosophical discussion with you about why one would actually need, why billionaires don't need to
Is it a
exist.
possible? Yeah. Is it possible to be an ethical 50,000 platinum heir?
Right.
Yeah, yeah. Ew. We'll get
To
into a very long discussion about the wisdom of capitalism and why
Mhm.
currency is even a necessity in a world where exchange of goods and resources should suffice.
Let's get
So
to
yeah,
Fuel's
yeah. To
Yeah.
question.
Phil's question.
How do you note the speech pattern and accent for each NPC? I mean, I have a character, an extant character of some kind in fiction. Usually, well, not. I don't think I have. All of them are from television or movies or cartoons and so on and so forth. But it's something where I can see and like hear a voice from. And I don't necessarily replicate that voice. For example, Benjamin Whitaker, the touchstone for the philosophy teacher that they've run into multiple times is Jean-Luc Picard. He does not sound like Jean-Luc Picard. And in fact, because of the way they've been interacting with him, his personality has changed considerably from that original position. But it is still something that I sort of snap back to from time to time, somewhere in between where he's ended up and where he started, which is how most people actually are. So,
I have a character I'm doing on another stream who is English, and specifically, she's from Cambridge. So every time before I speak, I think of Emma Thompson because Emma
Mhm.
Thompson has an accent from Cambridge. So if you can find like a voice that you're familiar with in the real world and make a connection to that, every time before I open my mouth as that character now, I think of Emma Thompson and try to mimic her speech pattern. So it's does fairly well.
I have a grid that I have with in my notes with NPCs that has, I think it's seven touch points that has to do with you, the placement, the pace, the pronunciation, so accent, the pitch. They almost all are P's. So I can always go back and look at that, and then also touchstone characters the way Sim does. So sometimes that becomes the shortcut, but sometimes it's okay. I know the voice is way up here, so the placement's really high and the pitch is really high. Or sometimes it's down here and it's slow. And so the placement is low and it's far back and it's
I'm getting massive
So-
turtle vibes off this
yeah.
voice.
Oh yeah. No, I played a teenage turtle. So this was in a one shot. So what I did was it was very slow, but I was also adding all of these. I was adding an upspeak so that everything was like slow and like because they were like a teenager. So it was combining all of these different pieces, but that's something that if I just wrote out like turtle, it might be I wouldn't necessarily remember that I wanted to add that upspeak and
Yeah.
add that teen thing to it. And also with a turtle, you're naturally inclined to go lower vocally, but it's
Mhm.
easy to you could if you make a note of it, you can take the pitch higher and then slow it down
Yeah.
still.
Yeah.
So thinking about those pieces of it is really good. Also, I think Katie put out a TikTok about the racetrack idea of like the placement where you put your placement. If you imagine a racetrack in your here, and imagining putting the sound in different places and how that affects
Okay.
the voices you
It
do,
wasn't
which is an
me.
interesting one.
It was another
A
Katie,
different
not
No,
Katie?
me.
not you, Katie.
Yeah,
It was
yeah.
Kate it
Katie
was
Soros?
yes.
She's brilliant.
Also,
Brilliant.
a tip: sometimes the terrifying monster just talks in a normal tone of voice.
Mhm.
If you do voices elsewise, it's really fun sometimes to just bring in like this giant terrifying monster and just have him talk to the players in a normal voice.
Yeah.
It's working with opposition with characters is always much more interesting than working with expectation.
Breaking
Finding
expectation is a lot of fun. It's a lot
But
of
in order to
fun.
break an expectation, you have to set the expectation first.
right.
Yeah.
So don't forget to
But just
actually do that sometimes and then break the expectation.
yeah, but working against type. So if you're you know
Cassius, it would be very time consuming.
If you're gonna play a
if you,
teenage turtle, you got to play a multi-class blood hunter, Order of the Mutant, and a monk, right?
God.
well this was actually this was a best friend to this was an established character, so she was a lifeguard, and I
Fair
think
enough.
I can look up what she was, but she
She
it
I
was
was
an
making-
established character that I was picking
I
up
was
for
making a
somebody.
joke
Ninja
about
Turtle.
a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle.
Turtle.
I know.
Yeah.
But this one was a
I had at one point a character that I was playing, and it was a teenage girl. And somebody said something, I don't remember what it was, but it was rude. And so I thought to myself, what is the meanest thing a teenager has ever said to me? And I turned to the DM who was playing the NPC and said, "Nice eyebrows."
oh,
And just decimated that NPC.
That
cutting.
so that would hurt your feelings,
Yeah.
is what I'm hearing here. I'll keep that in mind because that's news to me.
If you watched, like, I'm just gonna say Gen Alpha especially, they're starting to get older now. They will psychologically eviscerate you with 2 sentences. You gotta be careful of those kids. They are a new breed. Don't mess
Jennifer,
with Gen Alpha. Or yeah, Alpha.
Jennifer, I definitely interrupted you just now.
No,
to
it's
make
okay.
turtle,
It's all good.
joke. Okay. I was to say if you wanted to finish your thought, I apologize.
No, it's I don't remember what I was saying.
Sorry.
It's all good.
Found it. I found the lid to my Tasha's Cauldron that I got from Beetle and Grimm. I've been looking for this thing for
nice.
like a week solid.
Nice.
I keep my runts in it, so.
I mean, yeah, I'm looking at my NPC list here. This is too many NPCs. I actually, after our game started and you guys got back to the school, what I realized was that I had presented you guys with too many options. There are too many characters for you guys to actually play with here. to the point where, like, I remember we talked about this before, but when you guys were inviting people on to come on the ship with you,
Yeah.
I I originally thought to myself, they'll go out, they have all these NPCs they can ask. They could ask any of these, like literally, I think it's 40 or 50. No, it's 52, because that was literally one for every card in the deck.
Oh,
It's
that's
52
right.
NPCs to start with. There's more now, actually,
Yeah,
but it
yeah. But
was
I
52
remember
to
you
begin with.
mentioning that at one point, the
Um,
52.
there's all these students they could go ask. They could see about their previously established relationships. That was a silly thing for me to plan for. And it doesn't reflect reality, because players are going to go towards the characters they've already interacted with, that you've already put in front of them. And so that's exactly what the players did. They went for the basically 4 NPCs that they had, no, 5 total, I think. No, there were 6, because of Grimtooth, and then the 4 that you guys actually went with, then that was Grimtooth and Abelina.
Yeah.
Those are the 6 NPCs they had interacted with that they thought could potentially come on this trip with them. That's the 6 NPCs they went to.
I mean, I would
I
have
have
brought the prince, but I feel like he would have said no.
Yeah, this was too many NPCs. And it's something that I think in a home game is better, because you can. But in an entertainment driven sort of streaming game, I think you do need. It's when I was talking about earlier. We can circle back around to condensing your stories and writing shorter. Less characters means a tighter story. Now, a
Yeah,
lot
I
of these
mean,
people have already faded in the. I'm sorry, a lot of these people have already faded in the background, so it's not that big of a deal. But what were you about to say?
no, I finish what you're saying because I don't want to.
That was basically it. Just a lot of these people have already faded in the background, so it's not going to be that big of a deal going forward. But and then
Yeah,
is just sort of dot dot dot.
yeah, I think there are a limited number of characters you can care about in a story. It's the reason that Sim and I have talked about this, that in a TV show, at most you'll have most shows you'll have what they call an A story, which is the main plot line of an episode. You'll have a B story, which is sort of what the next storyline that's happening is. And then sometimes you'll have a C story. Occasionally you will have a D story or even a D and an E story, but that's pretty rare because you just can't track that many things at once. Like you just as a viewer, there's no way to track that many things happening within the span of a couple of hours or an hour or whatever.
A
And
really
it's the
good
same reason
show.
that
Oh, sorry.
Oh, it's the same reason too that you'll rarely see a cast. I mean, you look at something like Firefly, and that had 9 characters. That's extremely, extremely rare to have that many central characters. Usually you'll have like 4 or 5 that
Mhm.
you follow closely, and then a couple of sort of side characters that show up. And I think when you think about your game in a similar way, you think about your core adventurers, your PCs, and then you can have the side characters that come in, which are your NPCs, and you can handle a handful of those.
Mhm.
But beyond that, you can't track that many. So it ends up being a lot of effort that you've put in to as a DM, you've put into things that really your players and you won't have the brain space to adequately serve those stories or those characters or attach to them or give them any development. They just will. You'll be trying to figure out ways to bring them in, and they're just not that exciting. I mean, you can think of it like, I mean, if you think about something like Parks and Rec, where you have these characters who sort of live in the space and you'll see them once every 15, 20 episodes because they're in the town and they show up at a meeting, like that's fine. You have
John
characters that are like
Ralphio
a
is popping
single
into my head.
gag. Well, I would
John
say John
Ralphio.
Ralphio is closer to an NPC
Yeah.
than
I
what I'm
love
thinking
that
about. I'm
character so
thinking of
much.
like the people that show up at the council meetings and complain.
I
Like
I'm gonna
they'll
confess
show
I've
up
never watched anything
twice.
beyond the first 3 episodes,
I
but I have
Oh.
the
watched every clip of Jean Ralphio I can get my hands
there's
on.
there's a sign. There was a sign in the park that said "Do not drink the water." So I used it to make some tea, and I got an infection, and I need
Right.
to know who.
And those are characters where they have one gimmick. It's and you that one gimmick every time they show up, you're like, I know who you are.
Yeah,
You own the such and such a store, and you're gonna have this kind of complaint. And it's fun because you go, oh, I know who you are. But it's not a character who you're going to follow onto, like, you're not going to grab a thread from that character to go on their adventure.
It's almost
There's
like an
somebody
inside
who
joke.
exactly. There's
Yeah.
someone who just adds texture to the world.
Yeah. Okay.
I
But
think if
like
I
a
was
John
doing this,
Ralphio is someone
yeah.
who might give you a quest hook.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like that's someone who you have enough development and you spend enough time with and has a relationship to one of your PCs.
Right.
Where you'll have the shop or like,
Yeah.
you know, that kind of stuff. So
I don't mind this level of preparation that I've done here. I like having these NPCs. If I did anything differently, I just would change my own expectations of players' behavior towards these NPCs so that I can change my own behavior to make the game, to facilitate the game in a better way towards the players, which is a lesson. Again, I didn't get to mention this earlier because I kind of forgot a little bit, but Jennifer and I talking after a game is what made me realize this. Jennifer basically made all the points I'm making now as though they're on my own. So I should be clear about that. These are all Jennifer's points mostly that I have internalized and kept and taken on as lessons. I don't mind having these NPCs, but I need to be understanding a better of how players are going to interact with this world. It's nice to have them because it gives depth to the world. And I'll tell you right now, every game I've ever run, I do a lot of things. I like to start the players in transit. I like to and I like to have another character that interacts with the party on a regular basis that is having their own adventures that you don't see, the players don't see, the audience is never going to see necessarily. They just go off and do their own thing. And so for this part, this game, Katie, are you trying to figure out who it is in this game?
I'm thinking it's Doug for the other game. For this one,
it is obviously, yeah.
Yeah, for this one, I'm thinking it's going to be Charles.
It absolutely is Charles, yes. His own ship, he went into the Feywild on his own adventure. You guys don't know this, but he is actually a prophesied hero of his own, and that's the reason why he's actually I thought back to the reason why each of these people are at the school, and I changed a couple of them. Charles actually, he's following a prophecy that he's supposed to be like this great hero or whatever. So he's going to go train in magic. That's the whole point of it being at school. But that's his own. There's all these back. I love having that because even if I never, I'm telling you now, but even if I never tell the players about it, the fact that this character is coming back in changed after leaving for a little bit creates a little bit more of a dynamic world. You can't do that. You don't have the brain space for it, and the players probably don't have the attention span for it. You can't do it with every NPC you have, but you can do it with at least one.
Yeah.
And if it's a character that the players are very familiar with, it'll do the job.
I love the idea that, and I don't know if this is true for you, but as we were talking, I was kind of thinking about it, creating a very long, fleshed out list of NPCs or locations or something like that can also be kind of a confidence booster, almost a security blanket for a DM because you're going to have more confidence in what you're presenting because you know you have something backing you.
It also helps with some of your world building.
Built a foundation that you can build on top of. So even if you don't use those characters, you know they're there. And that's
functional world building.
Yes. Yeah.
It's world building that actually has a function that can be useful to you later.
Yeah. And there's nothing to say you can't take one of those personalities and plug it into another NPC down the road. Like if we didn't meet the home ec teacher, you could take that teacher, plug their personality into somebody else down the road. So it's not necessarily married to a specific character.
Yeah,
until
and these are all
encounter them, I guess.
And I should also be clear, this is just in my style of gaming. These are not universal tips.
No.
If they work for you,
no
great.
tip is going to be universal.
Yeah.
None.
If they don't work for you, don't do them. This is just how I like to play things. Everybody's got their own styles in both writing and that one thing I joke about is if you ever go to a writing class, you're right. I'm going to say every, but half of every writing class I've ever observed or been a part of has had a teacher that tells you that the way they write is the only way to write. Yeah. Learn this, always outline, so on and so forth. and it's just not how it is. Every person is different. And creativity is or creative endeavors are such a uh,
I mean,
are so in flux
yeah,
that if you don't allow your own brain to operate in its own way, you're going to run into more trouble than less trouble. Let's put it that way.
there are multiple ways to solve simple math now. There is no reason you have one way to do anything anymore. I'm just
This is
saying.
That's why I don't like I dislike traditional D&D puzzles, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
It's
I
because
am just
almost
I'm a
they're
riddle
often
girl. I
presented.
love riddles. I love
I
me
don't
a
like
good
riddles.
riddle.
I don't like puzzles. They're
Oh, I love
because
riddles.
they've been presented to me so often as having only one solution, and I know that a good puzzle, you can find more than one solution to.
Mhm.
But a lot of puzzles, even good puzzles, sometimes do only have one solution.
Yeah.
One thing I've been thinking about is defining doors in D&D as a very simple puzzle with basically only 3 or 4 solutions and finding ways around that, and I'm still working on it.
This intrigues me and I look forward to seeing this develop.
Well, because I have a science fiction element to my world, there
Yeah.
are additional things I can do besides just lock pick
Yeah, yeah.
and so on and so forth. Maybe you got to go find somebody's severed hand to put on the uh, hand sensor or whatever.
Right. And I love the fact that you didn't just say somebody's hand. You went with severed hand. It was very specifically severed hand, and I'm going to remember that.
It's a D&D campaign. Of course they're going to kill first and ask questions later.
Oh my gosh. No,
But yeah,
I've been really happy with the way everything with this game has just sort of been coming together and playing out. Like the when we got the players on board, and I could not believe our luck that everybody was available and willing to do it and excited for it, and now everybody's characters just kind of fit together so well, and the world has just, I know you do a lot of building around your players, but
yeah.
even still, like, it feels so natural, and I love that. I don't feel forced at any point when we're playing, and I love that.
I I gotta say, when this game was coming together, one thing that and some of the players know this, I think. Um, I have only run 2 other games before. One was a level 1 to 20, ran for 3.5 years, which has been over, and then one that is currently running. It's running for about a year and a half now, I think.
Yeah.
Um, that's it. This is third. So like, I was not expecting to get the. I mean, I was expecting great. I thought you'd invite great people, of course, but like, the people that you invited are like so high above what I was expecting. And now I'm gonna be like, well, I guess I just better see if I can make it work. I
I
do my
knew what I
best.
was doing. I knew what I was doing.
Um, I'm sitting back here going, I've got at the time I've got one game that I've finished, and then another game that's only been around for about a year.
Hmm.
Am I ready for? I
Well,
don't know. I
the
guess
thing is, the what I recognized is your ability to weave a story and listen to people and incorporate what people want to do and what they're trying to do and find a way to make that work reasonably within the world, within the rules that are governing the game. Um, Having seen that, I knew the mindset of players that would fit beautifully in that world. And I knew Jen was one of my like dream people to play with for so freaking long. And I figured y'all are both very literary and very smart and very quick. So I figured y'all would get along great. Latia is just one of the most wonderful, quick witted people I know. Lauren is, I like to think Lauren is a feather from the same bird that I am, in that we're going to go with it. We're going to have fun, and we're going to do whatever we can to support our DM and just make sure they have everything they need. There was another individual who was originally going to be playing with us, but their schedule didn't end up working out. And I brought them in because they were just a ridiculous human being who would add a lot of chaos to the game. And I love watching them and Latia play off each other, so I thought that would be a good match. But it we really I feel like, and it's gonna sound cheesy, I feel like the universe made the right pieces fall into the right places for a wonderful table, and that everybody at this table is 100% worthy of being here and brings something wonderful and unique to this table that nobody else could.
I'm still learning as a DM. That's absolutely a basic fact, but I
You're
learn
never going to learn
quickly.
everything.
Well, and yeah, I don't know a single DM who stopped learning, like,
Yeah.
honestly, but it
That's the
doesn't
reason why I
happen.
keep looking around for a game, because I feel like I haven't played in so long. So I
Yeah.
feel like without the player perspective, I'm missing a key component in the experience of crafting a game together. Like I can watch all four of you guys, because it's nice that I can actually watch you guys. Because I can see when certain events happen, what excites each of you individually.
Yeah.
Like I can see it on your faces. Like I can see when Latia's eyes go wide and she's noticed something that nobody else has noticed. Or I can see Jennifer with her little smirk when she realizes that something is going on behind the scenes and she's finally
She
figured out
makes
what's
a
going on.
connection and just that. Hmm?
Mhm.
And yeah, everyone's got their own little tells.
We all have our
Um,
tells, yeah.
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 And so I pay attention to that and kind of be like, okay, well I know you guys probably don't notice it, but I'm noticing you and going, I'm filing in my head, okay, that's something to develop later because this is something that player really found like either intriguing or interesting or even exciting. Sometimes you guys will just straight up say it out loud too.
Yeah.
That helps.
Yeah. So, have you had situations where something was not in your playbook and one of us just latched onto it or came up with something that you turned around and went, "Yeah, yeah, we're gonna develop that or run with that," or something along those lines?
I you're gonna this is my point when I talk about how I'm more of an
Yep.
improviser DM than a plan DM. Almost everything that we do is to some level me paying attention to you guys and then trying to play on what you like. But
Yeah.
like a great example is everything that happened in the reactor from top to bottom.
Oh, really?
And like 80% of the lore that you guys pulled out of the reactor.
Yeah. I know you originally had Frog in a Wizard Hat just as like a one scene, one off NPC,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
we took to him so
That's very
strongly.
true. Yeah.
Yeah, that made me really happy. And like the frog thing being a continuous thing has brought me so much joy.
That's
So
fair.
much
That's fair.
joy.
Yeah, I just try to play into what you guys want to do and then work from there because that's the point of we're creating a story together, right?
Yeah.
Everyone talks about that in D&D. Like that every DM will say, "Yeah, of course we're creating." Well, not every DM. Some DMs just want to write a book and have players play through it, but
Yeah.
um almost every D&D will at least play lip service to the idea that we're creating a story together. I'm actually creating the story
Yeah.
with mostly your help. Um and just trying to like go down the lines that you guys want to go down. Like I, I have arcs for each of the characters named. I'm big on naming things early on, right?
Yeah.
Like so we got Latia's is she probably has no idea what this is even about, but Latia's is video killed the radio star. Um what is Lauren's? I wrote these down.
Yeah.
Uh Lauren's is gonna be it's to become a pirate king. And then yours is face off.
Nice.
And then the final one is uh God, what's the name of that Edgar Allan Poe poem? That to a dream within a dream. That's what it's called. Um
Nice.
And the idea is, of course, that each one of those can be weaved into the stories because it's all each of those stories that I have in mind can kind of like smear across into the other stories too, to
Yeah.
some degree. So it's not like when we're like, for sure, I intend to focus on the secession crisis slash royal rebellion slash all the stuff going on in Brescia with
Mhm.
regards to your character first, because one, that's just the easiest, like the simplest thing to start with. There's a leader, there's a power struggle. That's what's going to happen, right?
Mhm.
That just makes it easier, and that could take 15 episodes, and by the end of it, uh, I
Things
wouldn't
will
mind that
happen.
actually. Yeah, and in that, well, also I'll find more information about what I'll discover more about the players by the way they interact with the game world. And
They,
from that, as the other stories, maybe the little bit more complex ones, well, especially like the dream within a dream stuff, which is going to be extraordinarily complex and hard to, not hard to, but like you're going to want to be invested in these characters before you start talking about the full, like really diving deep in on, is reality real
yeah.
sort of stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, like
Uh,
it's yeah, I see the question.
yeah. It's, I vote yes.
That'd be nice. I'd love to play in a play in a play. I'd love to be a player. Still looking for a solid game. I
Yeah.
thought I had one, and then it just kind of
It piffed.
disappeared. It
I'm
just
sorry.
also, I've been ranting a little bit here, so let's let you.
The lurking writer, asked, "What's in a name? Vowels and consonants,
Mm.
That's fair.
typically. Vowels and or consonants. We'll go with that. Yeah.
Yeah,
Um.
I I got to tell you actually. So, I knew that the God in the Heart. This is sort of an answer earlier about things that like changed.
Yeah.
Um, based on what you guys do. So I knew the God in the Heart was going to be kind of a core focus of the campaign in some way, especially since that's the god of Lauren's character, Furlough. Um, but I also wanted to focus on dreams. Now, at least in one episode, I kind of forgot there was already a god of dreams. And we went a little too hard into focusing in on the God in the Heart.
Yeah.
So then after that episode was over, I was like, fuck, okay, there's a cult and they're a little they've, I already had in the lore that the God in the Dream and the God in the Heart were married, so they're like,
Mm-hmm.
this cult thinks that they're really the same god and they treat them the same, and that's the whole, and then develop that from there.
Yeah.
And that was just to cover up a mistake, like all, not really a mistake, I guess it's probably not the right way to put it, but like I could have
Explain something.
I could have just defaulted to the extant lore instead of having to create something new. But
Mm-hmm.
once I started making the Isle of Dreams be a temple to the God in the Heart instead of the God in the Dream, I had to justify that. That
Mm-hmm.
has to be justified now.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, which that's a lot of inside baseball. But you want to know about stuff that I had to change on the fly because
Yeah.
reasons. That's one of them.
And I love hearing about how people adapt in different situations. So especially with DMing, because I mean the DM is sort of a focal point for the story in a lot of ways. They're kind of trying to herd the cats, and so that's one of the challenges that I've always found as a DM, because one of the things I deal with is an abysmal memory.
Mm.
It is a problem, which is why I was always the note taker. And so it's always kind of interesting to me to find out from people who are DMing. Okay, well, what's the thing that you had to sort of spin the wheels to I don't want to say right the wrong, but to reclaim the direction on how something was happening. Um, because that's one of the biggest challenges I think a DM faces is trying to maintain an integrity with holding the story together.
I think yes, but also I think the DM has the easiest time of that because as the DM, you it's your universe, it's your world. You can change things however you want. You are god of that place and the laws that govern it. And so if something doesn't make sense, that's okay because you can say it doesn't make sense or it does make sense or it connects. Like
Yeah.
if you want to retcon something because someone's messing with time, someone's
Yeah.
messing with the fabric of reality,
Yeah.
someone has been if your table is good with it, implanting false memories.
Mhm.
Like there are so many ways as the person who gets to create those pieces that you can work with that and
Yeah.
take like
The DM
I
has a
think
lot
that
of freedom.
They do.
yeah.
It's my, and I may be explaining it poorly. What I'm thinking of is like a couple, we'll say like 2 sessions ago, I you guys said that this your interaction with this NPC went this way. Well, I remembered it going differently. And so the after effect of that interaction that I have created based on my memory of it is not appropriate to what actually happened. So how do
Someone
I
came and talked to
adjust and
them but
manipulate
like
to make
okay,
that
so
work?
you they remember this conversation with the baker going great and they
Yeah.
thought they were great friends
Yeah.
and you remembered it going not so well. And so
Right.
you've been carrying this the relationship. They come back to the baker and the baker's kind of hostile toward them.
Yeah.
They don't understand why. Well, in the 3 days since they saw the baker, someone came in and started saying to them, those guys are trouble. Like they've
Yeah.
they've been going around, they've been stealing, they've been this, they've been that. So there's absolutely a way you can justify that.
Mhm.
Like
I
you've
think it's
just
harder
added to
from
the
a
fabric.
player perspective, though,
There's
maybe.
there's some something to that from both player and DM's perspectives. The reason I brought this up originally was that I'm trying to point out that honestly, contradictions are opportunities, not
Yeah,
problems.
Oh, I like that.
exactly.
That's
Uh,
really
in my
nicely
case,
put.
I just like was looking at it. I was like, I had a lot of possible solutions. I could have just retconned it and been like, I said God in the heart. I meant the God in the dream.
Yeah.
Or I could take it as an opportunity to expand the lore even more.
Yeah.
But in this case, let's just take the example you're giving. The two people have or two people are present for a conversation with the baker. Maybe one of them's not participating. Maybe one of them is. One of them thinks it went really well. One of them thinks it didn't go really well. That happens in the real world.
Yeah. I'm
That's
I'm
just
speaking
life.
more of like,
You can also develop a whole culture
Well,
around that. Like
we've encountered it in game where like
yeah,
Katie has a very flawed memory of a very clearly established fact in
sure.
game.
What I'm
And if
saying
I'm in
is,
the DM seat at that
yeah,
point, then it becomes more complicated for how do we deal with this in an in-game way that doesn't break the game, that doesn't detract from any accomplishment that the players have already made in a way that ruins it for them on a fun level.
so the first thing I want to put out there is people talk about breaking the game. Your game doesn't break. It's not a brittle thing. It can't snap in half. Like the game is as flexible as your imagination is. That it can contain multitudes. It can expand as much as you need it to. You're not gonna break the game. It's not gonna shatter if you drop it. Like it's not this fragile
Mm-hmm.
thing. It's rare you find something where you can't in collaboration with your players find a way to work around it. And if you run into a thing like that, hopefully you are playing with a group where you can go, oh cool, we're having a disconnect on this, let's have a conversation. Because first
Right.
of all, communication has to be above anything else at the table. Like that's key to making the game work. Because if there is anything that will break the game, it is not having communication at the table.
Yeah.
Beyond that, everything else is pretty much workable.
I'm gonna
or
say trust and communication.
in your situation,
It's
what you're talking about,
communication for me
yeah,
encompasses
what
trust because
in your case, what you're
yeah.
talking about specifically, if so, it can come down to how quickly does everyone realize what's going on?
Mm-hmm.
Because if I know and say almost all the rest of the party know how a particular interaction went. Well, to be honest, most players don't remember all of the previous interactions all that well. That's just the way the thing. I have a very good memory, but it's not perfect. No one's memory is perfect. But if one of the players has a different memory of the way things went, and you can catch it and you can realize that what's going on before it becomes like disruptive to the flow of where you're going in the game,
Mm-hmm.
because you're not going to break it, you're right, but you can
Disruptive is a
disrupt the
better
flow.
way to put it than
It can
break
be a little
yeah.
disruptive sometimes, but if you notice it in time, you can be like, this is an opportunity, and then very quickly come up with a way to make it work make your difference of opinion on how a particular social interaction went work in game. That comes with time, though. Like the 15 games we played probably still isn't enough time for me to know you guys well enough to immediately recognize when something like that's going on, but I'm getting there.
Well, and we have things where like we've had those disconnects where like
Mhm.
we all remembered something happening and somebody else didn't remember it happening, and we went okay and moved on with it, and later on we found the confirmation that it did happen or that it didn't happen. We went cool, okay, so we're gonna just go ahead and resolve that
Yeah.
and figure it out and move on.
Yeah.
Like it wasn't a huge deal.
Mm-hmm.
Most of the things aren't an enormous issue to rework. Some of the only places where I'll really like stop down are like if it's gonna kill a player, if it's gonna kill a PC, that's when I'll be like, we're gonna stop and make sure that we're getting this,
make sure everyone understands what's happening
like,
right now.
we're clear, everybody's on the same page with the rules, like you're doing the thing you want to do, you're sure you want to do this, you understand the consequences of it, I understand the consequences of it, like we're all on the same page with this.
Yeah.
Because those are the places where it becomes a problem, and like that's when you really, if it's something that's going to be a problem, then you need to be taking the time away to have the conversations.
Yeah.
If it's not going to be something that's a big deal, if you're going to rework some lore around it, then let it slide and let it be part of the atmosphere of the world and resolve as you go.
Yeah.
You know,
we've had at least 2 or 3 that I can think of situations where players believe they already knew a thing. I was pretty sure that they were only just now being introduced to a piece of information, and then I'm just like, well, you know now, so we're there, we've moved, it's fine.
I think there was one of those last session.
It was about the existence of submarines or not.
Yeah, that was it. Yeah,
the submarines, and then we also, in doing that, we found the clarification on whether or not we had known about the contestants becoming the gods.
Yes.
Which we had a disconnect on, but that was revealed in the same conversation that, like, when I went back to the notes. So we got the clarification on that and the submarines thing.
I have to be real careful with this game, because there are things, I'm playing another game in the same world, and there are things that character knows that this character doesn't. And so there are times where I'm like, wait, is that shit? Which, just keep your mouth shut, Katie. Because I just don't know. So it's a lot of fun, though. It reminds me of when I was LARPing, and I'd be out playing an NPC, and I'd have like the entire down low on a particular plot line, and then I'd come back in as my PC, and I would have trouble remembering what information was from which character. So I finally just made the rule of, if I'm playing an NPC in the plot line, I'm not interacting with the plot line in any way, shape, or form. And that served me well for LARPing. But
you're playing a character who has different pathways of access to information. So if you slip, there's absolutely a way to justify it in world. I mean, I'm not saying like you should actively be revealing information, but like if you slip,
and I mean, if
there's
it's not
there's
a,
a way that there's
fine.
a very valid way to justify how that happens, how Dominique would have access to that information. You have the ring,
it doesn't
you
hurt
have
playing a bard,
who you are and what you're doing. Yeah, your bard stuff. And you're not just a bard, you're kind of a sneaky bard.
Yeah.
So like
Yeah.
you're tapped into networks of things, like you can come across that
Mm-hmm.
in ways.
Cassius, there is another game set in this world, but it is played off stream. It is not a streamed game.
Yeah, I just created the world of Hymal and set all my games in it.
Yeah.
All 3 games. It's not a lot, but you know.
You may notice occasionally that I have a very strange reaction to something, and it's probably because of that.
Yeah, I actually I think a couple of times I was a little worried. I think we've talked about this a little bit off camera.
Yeah.
About how mentioning the home game when a piece of information comes up
Yeah.
can be a little bit problematic for both the audience and for other players.
Yeah.
And for me as a DM, I'm like, oh no, now they think this piece of information doesn't matter. It's just a reference to the home game. In my mind, I know the players are better than that, but also it's like in my head, I'm like, oh no, don't mention the home game. Don't mention the home game. That's in the home game. No.
There was one thing we found out in this game that has not happened in the home game yet, but occurred to the city that our home game is played in primarily. And I'm just waiting for that shoe to drop. I'm just waiting for that one to happen.
Wait, which? And now I'm trying to think of which one thing you're talking
Riddle
about.
being blown up.
Oh, Riddle has been blown up.
Riddle has not been blown up, but you mentioned that
Seems
Riddle
like,
was a
well, there's a
crater.
retcon. It's
It wasn't.
there's,
You
there's
weren't
an
talking
out
about
of
the
game
one up
justification.
north. It was Riddle.
What do you think? Hold on, I'm gonna get to the bottom of this really quickly.
I think something happened with the Godwell under Riddle.
Oh, no, that was just showing these players where the Godswell was. That's it.
Okay. I completely.
It was because it was a giant
misunderstood
hole
that
in the ground. That's what the Godswell is.
Okay.
But that's because it's an ancient map before Riddle existed. The only thing that was on the map was the Godswell. It's a place where the gods. Also, by the way, I've already established which of the 4 gods have escaped. The god of like 6741 drive and the goddess of musical theater and the god of narration.
Yep.
And God, what's the other one?
We call
I don't
him
remember
Jeff.
the 4th one. I don't remember the 4th one off the top of my
Jeff
head.
is the god of pockets in my world.
Jeff is the god of narration in this one.
Oh, yeah. We have Jeff the god of pockets. Because
Pockets.
because it justifies things like a bag of holding.
Yeah.
And it and
I
all
love
sorts
this.
of different there's all sorts of things that you can do around dimensions, but also all sorts of fun magic items. But Jeff the god of pockets
There's also Jeff the god of
is
biscuits.
a deity in my world. Yep.
Yeah, the god of narration is the guy
specifically in my game. I have Jeff the god of pockets.
Amazing.
That was invented at a table, and that has stuck in my home games.
Yeah.
The god of narration is the person who does the recaps for both games. And there was a moment when they were trying to reclose the Godswell in the home game. I know this is home game stuff. They were trying to reclose the Godswell, and for a moment there was a kind of basically the energies went a little wild, and they could hear him and he could hear them.
We had a conversation. He was like, "Wait, you can hear me?"
Yeah, I started narrating things that were happening in the game, and then I was like, and by the way, you all hear this.
You had, I mean, you want to talk about the musical theater overlap? You had some Into the Woods crap happening there.
Yeah.
What is?
But yeah, no, that's
okay. I just saw God of Tech Issues is hiding in the vent somewhere. Are we having tech issues?
I'm not seeing anything.
No, I think that's just a general, because above it was the god of oh god of hangovers.
Okay, got it. Okay, got it. That makes me feel better. I was real nervous for a second.
Yeah, no, there's a lot of stuff going on in this. I like having other stuff going on in the world that can be referenced back to.
Yeah.
But I will say, I don't think I would do that. I don't think I would have 2 games running concurrently in the same world like this if I had that choice in the future, because it has become extreme. It has become. I have to be like, what date is it exactly? I need because I think major things are happening in both.
There
sessions.
are very specific reasons to do a concurrent universe,
Yeah.
but they are very, very few and far between, and it has to be very specific stories.
I'm thinking of
and
As Above, So Below, the Mage
As Above, So Below,
podcast.
which is a game that
Or
that
stream.
Mike Sims
Yeah.
ran for us, which had 2 teams.
If it was
And
another streaming game,
It is the only
for
time
sure,
I
I think
will
I
ever
would wanna
see
do it.
my name next to Matthew Mercer's on the credits.
If it was
Yeah, it
another
was
streaming game, I would be more inclined to it. But having it be a home game and a not and a streaming game,
Yeah.
it's a little bit of a juggle that with it's a juggle with little reward.
Well,
Let's
if
put
we
it that
can
way.
get the things we need, then it might make it easier once we get the ship working.
That's possible. Oh yeah, your spaceship.
Yeah. We have
Neither
a
here nor there.
spaceship in the other game. That might make it a little easier on you. I'll see if I can.
Oh, you
maybe
guys are going to
push
get
us
you
more.
guys specifically are going to get a chance to level up here soon once you finish off with the Isle of Dreams.
Oh,
That is going to be.
Oh, I'm
Hooray.
excited about that.
It's been a little while, like a little been a while.
I
Um,
get
I'm
good
so
stuff
used
next
to
level.
games where leveling is like months and months and months and months between. So
Yeah.
I never
It's-
anticipate leveling. So
it's-
I'm just like,
It's
okay.
gonna get longer and longer and longer, but yeah.
Yeah.
I like
Yeah.
Well, it
I always
should.
say it's like you start at level if I start you at level 1, you're gonna get to level 3 within 2 sessions.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And then you're gonna get to level 5 very quickly. And then after that, it's supposed to slow down considerably. But it's been at least 2.5 months, I want to say, since you've been up to 5.
A little
I
while.
have no clue,
Yeah.
honestly.
Maybe even 3.
Time is a
I-
sweet.
No, I don't think it's been that long. I mean, I don't think it's been
Oh,
that many sessions.
It's one of those things where I'm like, I can't remember exactly, but I know how I can find out. You go back to the VODs and look.
I'm just.
Yeah, that's another thing that I'm getting used to is the ability to go back and look at a
They're
game
nice.
and see what happened. It's a different experience than the normal experience you have with D&D.
I mean, I have it in my notes somewhere.
Oh, also, I
Um,
never take notes, so in any way, fashion, or form. That's
Mhm.
the thing about the big long NPC list. Having it means my one weakness of memory, which is remembering people's names, is well, names and dates, but names, dates, numbers in general are difficult for me to remember. I can remember a story about somebody easily and completely forget who it's about. But having them means I can just go over to the list, be like, oh yeah, that's the fencing teacher. Click, click. Now I know your
Oh,
name.
that's funny. Sorry.
What do we get?
I just caught.
Oh, right. So
Yeah.
TVA.
Multi games in the same world are being closely watched by the TVA, the Twitch Viewers Association, as the lurking writer pointed
That's
out.
fair.
Love it.
I
I'm excited for the next level because then even if you fail a roll while using my bardic inspiration, you don't lose the bardic inspiration.
oh right,
that's
because you
nice.
converted to you converted to
Yeah.
2024.
Like-
I've been trying to figure out how to do that, but I have a character that was so dependent on multiple things that were 2014 rules that
Yeah.
I just don't think there's a way to upconvert it, and that kind of sucks.
I
We're doing
kinda
a
wanna
very
ask-
interesting blend of 2014 and 2024 currently.
We can talk a little bit about this on stream or off stream if you're more comfortable with it, but we have a little bit more time here, and then we'll probably call it. I think for at least because we're at an hour and a half.
Mhm.
I mean, what are the things you don't think you'd be able to keep if you converted over that you would like?
I mean, so both my species doesn't exist in 24, so
That's
all
fair.
of the species stuff goes away, and all of my subclass stuff goes away because that subclass doesn't exist in 24. So I lose all of the things that things that my build is building toward, all of the teleportation-y stuff. All
My subclass was
everything that
not
my
specific
character is
to
about.
24. I'm using an outdated subclass.
Yeah, because you can mix the
Yeah.
stuff properly. But I get what you're saying here. If you wanted to convert everything over, you would definitely. I think it's the pet and teleport is the primary. The stonky and teleport is
Snonky wouldn't convert. Yeah, just everything
primary
about
lore.
this build is specific to 2014.
And that's fine. There's actually no problem. I mean, obviously that's I
Yeah,
say
but
that's
then
fine. But
I
yeah,
like the 24 druid is really, really cool.
Yeah.
I like what's in there for the 24 druid, but I mean, I could homebrew something, but it's a lot of work to homebrew
What you have
all of the
works.
things I need.
What you have works, and maybe
Yeah,
you'll
what
get
I
a
have
chance
works.
to Maybe they'll get a chance to switch characters at some future point. You don't know. It's you're not
Yeah.
nobody's immortal.
That's true. That's true.
I actually
never
have
know.
I've been because I actually that's something I was gonna talk to every player about is like
Yeah.
don't feel like you're like chained to your character because I know that can happen a lot because just because this particular plot point revolves around a particular character doesn't mean I can't which I've done before in other games. Like I've had like the entire plot focused on not entire plot, but like major
Major plot
elements
point.
of the plot, major elements of the plot focused on a character, and then that player leaves. And I'm like, it's all right. I can make it work.
Yeah, but I think if we lose Snonky, there might be a bloodletting.
Yeah, there would be a problem if we lose
yeah.
Snunky.
Yeah.
So
It
no, I
would-
mean it's fine if I stick with 2014. It's not a big deal, but
Yeah.
it was something I didn't consider when I built this character, and I probably should have.
I didn't even think about
But the
a
rules
role
weren't
shift
the
either.
final rules weren't out yet, so
Yeah.
it wasn't possible. But I didn't think about the fact that neither of those things were going to be up converting to.
Yeah.
narratively, just for the audience's sake here, narratively, the best option if something were to ever happen to Rivulet is to actually have Stonky survive and mourn her passing.
Snunky becomes a teardrop
Oh, why?
because I love to make people cry.
And with that,
Your anguish.
No, you
sustains
can't.
me.
Oh gosh, don't end on that.
all right. Well, I mean, if you don't want to, that's that.
Ugh.
But it's like I do think narratively that's the most satisfying
Mhm.
version of that. Like, if especially if it's before any major plot elements get resolved, for sure.
Yeah.
Just be like, yeah, that's what happens.
Mm,
Because a dreamer will always there will always
not gonna
be a
happen, though.
dreamer.
I mean, if there's always a dreamer, it is entirely possible that that's what happens. Is basically Rip's consciousness just switches to
Well, it's
something
the
else.
I'm treating it like the reincarnate spell,
Yeah.
essentially. So
Yeah.
All right.
Except, well, technically that's not true. I'm not treating it like the reincarnate spell. I'm treating it like actual reincarnation
Yeah.
in the real world.
Yeah.
I had to be clear about that. I suddenly realized that reincarnate allows you to basically stay the same person. And that's not what's happening there.
Mhm.
No, it's
it-
you
well,
become somebody different, but it's the essence of the dreamer.
there's always a dreamer, which it will be interesting. See, that kind of stuff is the stuff that would actually require me to be like, well, I've got some work to do.
Okay. So I have a question for everybody,
Yeah.
including viewers. I have a thing where I will be driving around. I do a lot of driving for work because I work all over the state of Georgia. So I have to go down to South Georgia and back in the course of a day. So that's like 8 hours driving in one day. So I often write in-game songs based on real world songs, but like adjust lyrics and stuff to make them work for in-game. If I were to do those and record them, would it be worth posting? Would people have any interest in seeing that?
I think you run into, well, that's a really fun idea.
There
I'm
wouldn't
not
be
entirely
music. It
sure.
would just be me singing a cappella. So there's not a
Strictly
concern.
speaking,
Yeah.
it still would be a copyright concern.
Is it?
But
Because
is-
Covers are no, because
It's
covers are it's
covers
covers.
are fair
It's
use.
We
their
did
own
that.
thing.
We did it for Children Verte. Adam
Yeah.
did a bunch of them.
Yeah.
There are. It becomes fair use.
Yeah.
If it's transformative.
We should
fair
we should.
use is it fair use is one of those things.
I know.
Go ahead.
We should. What I will say is we should just look into the legalities
Yeah.
before we put it
Yeah.
out there as an
Okay.
option. Let's just
Yeah.
do that.
That's the
Because-
right way to
but-
phrase that. You're absolutely right. Yeah. It's something that needs to be looked into. Just for the audience's sake, because I hate having to correct people about fair use. Fair use is you telling someone that you're willing to take it to court and prove that the fair use is okay.
Mhm.
Like
Right.
there's no default fair use. A judge
Right.
decides if it's fair use or not.
Right.
Noah Downs did a whole hour and a half long conversation about fair use, especially in the tabletop space, which is worth watching for anyone who.
I'm going based off Legal Eagle. He did a
Mhm.
whole thing about fair use for content creators.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah. There. When I say there is a
But
copyright concern, it's what I mean is literally a concern. We would need to take a look and see
Yeah.
what's going on with that.
Yeah. I mean, we're not going to be, yeah. Well, we'll
Covers
talk
have
about
their
it.
own it's
Yeah.
its own thing. It's a
Mhm.
little different than just it's a whole thing of its
Well,
own.
I
And
have
I'm not
one that
familiar
I
enough with
know
it
I
to
could
make
do
that.
because it's an original written by a friend.
There you go.
So I know I could do that one.
I love the
but
idea.
let's
Actually, I love that idea. If you wanted to do it privately, I was about
Yeah.
to say those
Okay.
would be fun for the players probably.
Yeah.
but yeah, let's explore how that works before we officially posit
Okay.
the offer.
Sure.
Yeah.
Um,
All right. Well, I'm looking at my list of NPCs here. I remembered I named the blacksmiths. It's a brother and sister named Cutmore and Cutlass.
That's awesome.
They're
I love
both
that.
Earth Ganassi. Cutmore and Cutlass. Yeah. Um, but yeah, no, that's I think we're at a good stopping point because we were getting a little to the point where we would normally take a break anyway, if it was a normal game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So with that said, thank you all very much for being here. Our moderators, Philith and Strike Red Kite, thank you very much. I don't know, was there music playing? I don't have the audio over here. Was there music playing that we need to credit?
No.
Okay.
Not tonight.
All right.
But we should mention our schedule for the next couple of weeks
That's fair.
since we have a weird thing.
So I
Holiday
want to
we are
discuss this.
Back next week,
Yep.
right?
Yes.
And then we will not be playing for the rest of the year unless something changes. So next week will be our finale for this year.
We come back on the 5th.
I believe so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Our
It's
last
the
game of the
4th or
year
the
will be
5th.
our last game of the year will be the 1st of December. Our first game of next year will be the 5th of January. I'm still going to talk about this with the rest of the players probably the next time we're all together. But I think it might be best to just run the last 4 episodes for those 4 off weeks as a replay or rerun, whatever the term for Twitch is. I think that's our best bet because it's Christmas. I want to relax. I already kind of want to. I'm creatively drained right now.
I believe
I'll
it.
put that entirely out there.
You've had a little bit tugging on your brain juice this year.
It's been a lot, but
Yeah.
it's if I didn't hate writing so much, it would be very rewarding. But it's a pleasure. I'm glad you guys enjoyed the stream. It was a absolute pleasure to talk to both of you as well. If you have anything you'd like to plug on the way out.
Keep an eye out Thursday nights. I think we've got one more episode this year. I'll double check. Watch my socials. Goblin Katie on all the socials. Primarily focused where these skies are. And if it's happening, it is a game called Witching Hour, which is a Vaesen multi-series game. And it's super creepy and it's a lot of fun. And I talk like Emma Thompson, so it's delightful. It's 8 p.m. on Thursdays. That's all I got.
You got anything, Jennifer?
I am also over on Blue Sky at dreamwisp.beskies.social. Check out the 2024 Dungeon Master's Guide. I did stuff on that and it's pretty cool. And I have an announcement that I'm hoping to make by the end of the year, but we shall see. Oh yeah, that book, that one. My name's in that. And also in that. Oh, same book, different cover.
Yep.
Yeah.
All
So
right.
that's where I've got going.
Well, I have nothing because I've been too busy with other projects to do anything publicly, so I don't have any public coming out. No, not towards the end of this year. So it's been a pleasure, and we will see you next week for the last episode of the year. Thank you very much for watching. I don't have an outro yet, so don't die, and we'll see you next week. Peace.